Okay. Hey, folks. Welcome. Hey, everybody on TikTok. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. Welcome, everybody here on YouTube. Let me get my hair to cooperate with me today. The curls are always fighting me every day of my life to rule over everything. All right. So we are going to give this a minute for a few people to tune in. And if you guys are having any trouble hearing or seeing me here on YouTube, you can go ahead and switch over to TikTok and vice versa. Okay, both addresses are Ask Ivy. So tonight's class is parenting and spirituality. If you have tuned in here before, you know that all of my classes are interactive. So I do appreciate you guys posting your questions and your comments. We do take those at the end of the curriculum. So go ahead and start posting those now. And we will get into it here in a minute. Okay. Do I have a thumbs up here on the audio and the visual from TikTok and from YouTube? All right, welcome everybody. I see Nicole, Shauna, Melissa, Rachel, David. Good to see you guys. All right, looks like, okay, very good. Rachel, thank you so much. Okay, so a couple quick announcements before we go ahead and get into today's curriculum. We do have coming up at the end of the month our walk-in night virtual psychic fair. So from the comfort of your own home, you can attend one of our fairs for $15. You get 2 readings, 2 healings, a reading and a healing. You can mix or match. If you guys are hearing a bunch of noise, I do have moving people here. And that's what like all these chairs and everything are. I'm getting ready for an event here in a couple days. So it's a little chaotic here today. I'm going to try to just talk over all of it and pretend you don't see that. So walk-in night monthly virtual psychic fair showcases students and graduates of my Ivy League Psychic Academy. Tickets are on sale now, and I believe that is going on the last Saturday of the month. Okay, so you can go onto my website just to double check my math on that, and that is in the description above or below, depending on where you're tuning in. Tickets do go fast for that, and it does tend to sell out. All right, so go ahead, get yourself in for this month's virtual psychic fair from the comfort of your own home. I also have my raffle, last call on the raffle, people. So if you want to be entered to win a 100% free psychic mediumship course, $2,100 value, the psychic mediumship course starts April 25th and the raffle drawing is April 24th. Tickets are on sale now. Then on May 28th, we already have tickets on sale for this as well. It is our first really big psychic fair that we're doing in-house at the new headquarters here in the 1800s Victorian Funeral Home, headquarters of the Ivy League Psychic Academy. And we're running the psychic fair virtually and in person. So you can get a reading from wherever you are in the world, or if you want to come and join us here, we're doing that from, I want to say 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on May 28th. Now, on that same day, we're doing 2 other things. So you can get tickets for a self-guided tour of this property. All 4 floors are open to the public, and you can learn more about the history of the place. If you want to jump in for a paranormal tour, a supernatural tour, if you've been waiting on the ghost hunts, we start that day as well, 8 p.m. Each group is 12 heads cut off at that point. We're going from 8 to 1 a.m. and groups are starting to fill. Okay, so go onto the website and reserve your spot for that. We are also taking walk-ins, of course. Then we have the Psychic Mediumship course starting April 25th. Like I said, registration is now open, so you can go to psychicmediumshipcourse.com to get your seat. And with the psychic mediumship course, I have 2 tiers. So in tier 1, you're just getting the video downloads, giving you the basic explanations about how psychic, empathic, mediumistic abilities work, and a little direction on what to do with it from there. If you take tier 2, you're actually getting certified through the program, and you'll be working with assistant teachers, me directly every 6 weeks or so. You'll be reading through our volunteer system, working the monthly psychic fairs. And once you are certified, you are hired on as an Ivy League worker. Okay, so lifelong work opportunities with tier 2. And my last announcement is Taste of Psychic Mediumship, 2nd annual. That is also April 24th. So if you haven't already gotten your seat, you could do it through Zoom or you could do in person, but it is limited seating on both. That is completely free. It's 3 hours of psychic mediumship training. So if you go up onto the website, it's called Taste. And that's where we're doing the drawing also for the raffle. So check it out. All right. Again, if you guys are just tuning in, welcome. If you hear some noise, I do have some movers here, and that's what like these chairs and all this mess is. Okay. So I'm getting ready for the event this Sunday, the Taste. And so we're just going to act like that isn't happening. And I'm going to try to talk above it. Shouldn't really be a big issue for me with my big mouth. I do want to encourage you guys, if you're just tuning in, you're going to be posting your questions and comments. We do take them at the end. So welcome everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, Taino Arawak. I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy, where I train people internationally, and slowly we're getting back to in-person in everything, ranging from psychic mediumship development to numerology, tarot, astrology, Reiki, meditation. We train children as well as adults. You name it, we do it. Check out a full list of classes at ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com. What you've caught here tonight is one of my free mini classes. I've been putting out 1 to 2 per week since the pandemic hit. This is called the Quarantine Series. And at this point, 3 years later after COVID, I have quite an accumulation. So you go on to YouTube at Ask Ivy. Up in the playlist, you can see all the free mini classes. Tonight's free mini class is called Parenting and Spirituality. So this was based on a poll that I ran recently on a series of classes. Drinking and drug use and spirituality, politics and spirituality, parenting and spirituality, health, exercise and spirituality. I had all different kinds of things that you guys could pick and choose from, and this hit the #1 spot. So tonight we're going to be talking about how you can protect and raise your child to positively embrace their intuitive intelligence and spirituality in a harsh societal environment, dead against it. Couple other classes that I would suggest if this is a topic of interest for you here on YouTube is The War on Intuition, Part 1, Part 2, looking at government systems, looking at family systems, religious, educational, and even like pharmaceutical, the medical system, and how all these systems are actually set against us embracing our intuition. You could also check out a class called Intuitive Kids up on my website, and another one called Empathic Kids. All right, parents, this is going to help you a lot. If you're an educator, if you're a therapist also, this is going to help you to get some pretty good insight into what's going on with an intuitive kid. I do want to encourage everybody at this point to give this video a thumbs up. Thank you. Donations are always appreciated. And I want to encourage you guys, if you're here on YouTube, to also hit that join button if you want to become a member for all kinds of extra monthly perks. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Again, you guys post your questions and comments as we go. We'll be taking them at the end. So my upbringing was confusing. I am a born intuitive, which means I didn't take classes. I didn't read books. I didn't chase this down. I always had it, and it was always a bit of a disruption on my life. I thought everybody had it. So until I was in school, I didn't understand that the way I was as a psychic, a medium, an empath, I didn't really fully understand how different it was from everybody else. Now, my upbringing was confusing because I'm like 42. Okay. So I was born in 79. So there wasn't a whole lot out there. All right. I didn't have the benefits that today's kids have, but even today's kids don't have very much of value and worth in this field. So we hope to pioneer that here, of course. But when I started going to school, I was immediately pinpointed by my teachers and sent off to doctors and therapists and different professionals to try to figure out, what was wrong with me. Well, it was always what's wrong with Ivy? What's going on with Ivy? And they never found anything substantial. I was always being evaluated, but they were coming up empty-handed on the tests. So they couldn't really say that I had bipolar disorder, and they couldn't really say that I had a learning disability, and they couldn't figure out what on earth was actually happening. So the diagnosis was melancholy. All right. They would tell my mother that I would cash out. They would say, Ivy just seems to sort of leave her body and she'll just sit there and she can't even really hear us. So this was a problem for me when I was in active, loud, rowdy groups of many, many other people. Being a level 4 empath and born as an intuitive at the highest level of empathic ability, check out the empathic awareness class to learn more. I would automatically shut down, melt down, cash out when I was around an excessive amount of stimulation. A bunch of rowdy kids running around and playing and screaming and, yelling and climbing. And it was sometimes too much for me. Sometimes the classroom was too much for me because there was too much stress and pressure being put upon me to perform. And there was too much stress and pressure being put upon the other kids around me. And I would accidentally absorb all that toxic energy and I would shut down. So I think it was pretty accurate when teachers would tell my mother, we don't know where she goes. She cashes out. It's like she's not even in her body. So my body didn't understand, nor does your child, if you have an empathic kid, probably. They don't understand the difference between positivity and negativity. If there's something really fun going on, like a birthday party, right? Or there's time to run around with friends at class and sing a song or dance, they don't necessarily read that as positive, whereas other children would. They wait for that. They hope and pray for that. That's all they want. Well, for an empathic kid, it's going to cause a lot of discord. It's actually painful to be in that type of an environment. So we handle it in different ways. And most of them are not very productive for the educational atmosphere and what your teachers are expecting and demanding of you at that time. We could say that we live in a society that deeply is dysfunctional and disrespects personal space and boundaries and what's comfortable for each person as an individual. And I also saw that my family was creating confusion for me because I grew up in a Puerto Rican, Native, and French background. So we embraced mediumship, we embraced psychic ability, we embraced spirituality, all of it. And so at home, what I was accepted. But out in public, and because I went to Catholic school for a few years also, I was told to deny it. So I was told to be ashamed of what I was and who I was. While my family was embracing mediumship, they would go off and get readings. We talked about ancestors who were coming to visit us all the time. It was not considered paranormal. It was normal. It was part of the life process, that life continued after death. So it was hard for me to be told in one instance that I was like normal and this is fine and Ivy just has it a little more than the rest of us. But that's almost a good thing, to having to be ashamed of it and deny it. It didn't work well for me. And I had to decide on my own at a young age whether I was going to try to fit in with society or I was going to push that away, since they didn't seem to know what they were doing anyways. And I was just going to embrace who I actually was and spirit. and the spirit world that was always supporting me, whereas society was not. Adults were not. The educational system was not supporting me. My family was not supporting me. So I embraced spirit, and I believe that's how I became whatever it is that I am today in doing this kind of work and having this as part of my life journey. Now, your child at some point is going to have to make that decision, especially if they're feeling a ton of pressure, dichotomy there, real bipolar environment. And we hope, I hope, I'm sure you as parents hope that they will make the right decision and not abandon their intuition, their higher mind, their true selves, their spirit, their connection to the other side, all these things that are good and honest and true. And ultimately, if they do abandon that, they're going to have to go all the way around the mountain only to find their way back to that in the end anyways, okay? Because logic lies, feelings lie, energy never lies. So let's get them there from the time they're young, right? So my upbringing, very, very confusing. The misdiagnoses went all the way into my late 20s until I eventually cut off from the medical field. And I said, okay, clearly they have no idea what they're talking about. They're never going to be able to help me. They would put me on different medications and they would give me a diagnosis. And then months later, they would apologize and say, let's fix this. Let's get you off these meds because they were making me sick or my liver was shutting down. And they would say, sorry about that. Let's try another diagnosis. And I eventually reached a point where I was disgusted with the fact that these therapists and doctors would prefer to tell me that I was either lying about the prophecies I had or the mediumship, that I was maybe confused about what was going on, even if I had 100% accuracy rate. Okay. And that they would rather have me be mentally ill in some way than to embrace the possibility that I had intuition. So I was disgusted, and that was the cutoff point for me in my late 20s. At that time, I figured it out on my own, and the rest is history from there. Then all of this unfolded from that. What I would like to see, okay, with you guys going forward with your children, whether these be, again, students that you teach, or maybe if you're a therapist, you have kids coming in and you don't feel like you want to misdiagnose them with psychosis or something, and as parents, of course, I hope that you will embrace these ideas that we're about to get into here now. And this will also help you to protect yourself, protect your child going forward, because you are going out into a vicious system that is dead set against embracing this. Okay. So we have to be realistic. Again, if you missed at the beginning, the class suggestions, if this topic interests you, here on YouTube are the War on Intuition, Part 1 and Part 2, Intuitive Kids and Empathic Kids, up on the website. All right, post your questions and comments. I will be getting to them. If you're late tuning in, give this video a thumbs up, please. Greatly appreciated, and donations are always appreciated. So what can you do with your child, with your students? How can you help them to not be handicapped by this and attacked for the amazing gifts and abilities that they have going forward? The first thing is you need to decide that you are not going to be double-minded. You need to be strong, secure, stable, and you need to set an example for them. You can't be hemming and hawing and calling it weird and calling it crazy and using toxic language and making it a torturous situation for them as they go out into classrooms and a society that wants to peck at them for being what they are until there's nothing left. Okay. I think of a scarecrow. When all the crows come, that's what they do. They want to peck, 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 peck. And a lot of it is just going to come simply through questions. Okay. So a lot of people walk a different path in life than the mainstream. And when you are one of those people that looks different, your hair's different, your skin color is different, you act different, you know something in a different way, what does everybody do? They want to know. I want to know. I want to know. Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why. And it's like you become a specimen to be studied. And these kids have to be prepared to respond to those questions. They're not always vicious attacks, but it is awkward. And if you as the parent don't know your position, or you're creating conflict behind closed doors and in the dialogue, they're not going to know how to respond to that. So get them prepared, all right, by you being prepared. So let's talk about you getting educated. Okay, number one, what do you need to do? You need to get educated on what intuition is. This is what I do here. Ivy League Psychic Academy, classes for kids, adults, okay? Get educated on what psychic, mediumistic, and empathic abilities are, how they're different, and how they're intertwined. Once you can fully understand what's happening with each one, you can better understand how your child receives. And if we know how your child is receiving their information, your child can get empowered by using their discernment wisely. What we want for them is to have the upper hand on all of this. So if a spirit comes to communicate, they need to be able to say, I like this spirit or I don't like this spirit. This spirit is coming from a negative lower energy, and that is an automatic no. I am putting my foot down and setting a boundary. Or this is grandma. You know, this is a spirit coming from the light who visits me all the time, and this is okay. I feel comfortable entertaining this conversation with you, this interaction. They need to learn that on their own. And often you have an intuitive child and the parents aren't very intuitive. It often skips a generation or two. And so you can't do that for them. They have to figure that out on their own. So get educated and help them have the proper tools to decipher what spirits are positive, which ones are negative. Okay, number 2. You need to understand the different types of conformities and attacks that will come up against not only your child, but also you as the parent. So get educated on how the school system, right, the medical system, your toxic family members that are non-believers. Maybe you come from a line of very hyper-religious people who are involved in like the Catholic Church, right? Well, that's a cult. It's all brainwashing. It's all fear-mongering. That's what a cult is. It's based on fear. And they're not going to get on board with what you're doing. Maybe you have a spouse or an ex and you're going through a divorce and they're super toxic and they want to say that you are exposing your child to something dangerous, you know, that you're hurting your child by allowing them to explore crazy things like their psychic ability. You know, be prepared for the battles that you're about to come in alignment with. But I think that one of the most common things that I can say to every parent is that once they are out in the school system, they're probably going to get misdiagnosed with ADHD or some other type of similar disorder. Okay, sometimes they'll say that they have hearing problems or all kinds of other things like that, and that they think they're on some type of spectrum. And it's immediately like, let's go to the meds. Let's go to the treatment. And they will not allow you space to explore if it might be this. Okay. For me, my entire life, it was always this. They never nailed it. They never once came out with a right diagnosis, but I've been diagnosed with everything else under the sun. Be very careful before you get your kids on meds for something they don't have, and Big Pharma gets to collect on that cash. Okay. And the teacher gets to look like a hero, or the school system gets to look like they're doing their job and you're not. All right. Be prepared. Number 3, if you are, was I on number 3? We edit these later. Let me see where I am. Yeah. Let's say that number 2, I pity the fool who has to edit this later. I don't know. Let's say the number 2 and number 3, okay, are sort of, I pooled them together. But on number 3, I wanted to talk more seriously about other people, you know, that are around you who may be attacking you, whether it be on a personal level, especially with spouses. We see this become a real issue. This could even be, and you guys may feel like, no, that's a little over the top. I doubt that will happen. You sometimes don't know who you're married to and who you had children with until your spirituality comes into play and you are defying what they have been raised up around, their programming. And you want to take this beautiful child that you now share and you want to say, you know what? I want to break the toxic system here. I want this child to embrace their abilities. And your spouse may be like, 100% in with their family and the brainwashing that happened there with their religion, okay, and make you out to be some kind of a villain. It often leads to things like divorce. Just be careful. But look at who is around you. All right. I want to talk about also number 4. Okay. Your child getting picked on, bullied, harassed, or just even pecked at. Like I said earlier, with all the questions, why are you like this? Why do you do this? Why are you performing this way when we are all performing this way? Why do you feel the way you do now when we're all happy and excited and rowdy? You have to be prepared to allow your child to understand that they don't have to tolerate it, that they don't have to be nice. Don't raise your kids to be nice people. I mean, there's a big difference between being nice, which is essentially being like a doormat, and being a kind, loving person living within community and being willing to be of service to others. Huge difference here. Your child does not need to be submissive to anyone else. If that's grandma who wants to come over and kiss them on the cheek and squeeze their face and hug them and invade their personal space until your child is crumbling and cannot stand that type of contact, unacceptable. Okay. Let them have their personal space. Let them own their bodies from a young age. If they don't like kids at school asking them a lot of questions or joking, they need to be given the tools with responses. They're prepared with responses for that type of situation. Maybe sometimes, we don't need to bite, or we don't even need to bark. Maybe we can just kind of growl at people sometimes, set a boundary. They need to know the difference between the growl, the bark, and the bite, and what situation calls for which reaction. And in times when they are being bullied, they are actually being harassed, there needs to be an absolute no nonsense, an unacceptable, reaction. What's the word I'm looking for? No tolerance. Okay. A zero, no tolerance reaction to things like that. So, the bullying can be incessant, and your child is already going to deal with this probably the rest of their life. So let's cut it at the knees, okay? As soon as it starts, whether you have to report it, get involved, but end it as quickly as you possibly can. Now, the more your child can be prepared for these instances, the better off they're going to feel, because instead of them having to sort of wait until it's in a detrimental place and trauma has struck and everything's sort of in a big pile collapsed on the floor that they have to now pick up and piece back together, they will learn that along the way, they can manage and manipulate through their own power and discernment how a situation is going to go. And even if it doesn't work out 100% the way that they wanted it to, they still had an upper hand in it. They still participated. They didn't have to be a passive victim in the circumstance as it played out. Okay. And nor did they have to wait for you. They don't want to wait for ma to have to come down to the school to handle it. They want to, even if they're not 100% successful in the turnout, they want to feel as though, they played some role in it and that they're learning something. They're gaining little bits of power along the way. Okay. So help them to know that they can do that by letting them go out and experience it. Don't helicopter over them and take that experience away from them. Let them go walk it out. Your kids will use the tools if they have them when they need to. Okay. Have faith in that. So your role, stay in your lane. Okay. Take on your responsibility, hold yourself accountable, and let go, let God. When it comes onto their journey and their path to walk out, force them to do that. Right. I would also say that, what are we on? 5? I don't know. So let's say it's 5. So when we're talking about an intuitive child, especially an empathic child, you have to understand that they attract vampires. They attract kids with dysfunction, kids that are being abused or neglected. They attract other empaths. They attract other intuitives. They will attract both positive and negative to the extreme. And what that can mean is that the say teachers in the classroom recognize this. I have an empathic awareness training for teachers up on my website, and teachers, you can earn teacher credits for this. And I teach this in universities. You should not take that empathic child and put that child next to the problem child in the room, the kid who has hyperactivity, or the kid who, is always bullying others, the kid who has trouble concentrating, he's always a distraction. The empathic child will always be used as a tool to calm the room down, to make the workload more productive. And this is so damaging to the intuitive kid. As they deteriorate, no one knows why. It's because the teacher has designed the classroom to work around them. And that child is being drained, can no longer concentrate, is having meltdowns. Your child may not have ADHD or some kind of learning disability, as much as they are being used by the teacher in the classroom to be completely drained. So surrounding an empathic child with other problem children in the classroom is a very wrong and typical approach. You're actually taught this in college, from my understanding. Like, that's the system you're actually designed to use. Oof, so we got problems, okay? So you have to, as a parent, be prepared. You have to, as a teacher, right? You have to be prepared to not make that mistake and not allow the teacher, the educators, to make that mistake with your child. You also have to teach your child that because they radiate with this very healing energy, they will attract kids who have a lot of problems and issues. And that while they may be wonderful at being a good friend and compassionate, and we want to foster that, especially in our world today, they do not have to be a victim or a martyr in those cases. A great example is, always the reaction when one of the students at a school shoots it up. And we want to say, here in America, right? Those of you tuning in from around the world are probably like, what? Yeah, this happens here all the time. We have no gun laws. So like, kids just murder other children like constantly. So what happens, right, is that everyone reacts to the murderer. And they often say, well, this person was bullied, or the kids should have been nicer, or they should have sat with him at lunch. No. If that kid had the capability of, lots of kids sit alone at lunch. They don't go off murdering everybody. Okay. If that child had problems and they were capable of murdering people, then it is for your child as an intuitive to read that energy and say, no, thank you. And they should not be guilted into having to sacrifice themselves in keeping that type of company. And that is common to have the nice kids, right, the intuitive kids, pressured into keeping the company of others that they should not be engaging with. So allow them out of all of that. Get them prepared to know they should trust their gut instinct. And if their gut instinct says no to this person or this teacher or this family member, then they need to honor that. They don't have to wait till they have proof. They need to honor it immediately and create distance there. Again, if you guys have not already done so, go ahead and post your questions and comments. I'm going to go through just a couple more things here, and then we're going to start getting to them. I do try to get to everybody. All right, so let's move into how can you recognize this in your kids. All right, so the way I wish I had been treated, what I did with my children, and what I encourage other parents and educators to do is to examine the age range of the child and what type of intuitive increases they would be going through during that time. So we have a class here on YouTube. I think it's called Intuitive Increases. And in the empathic awareness class, which is up on the website, I break these down over the course of your entire life. And we're just going to talk here today about childhood. All right. So at 3 years old, your child becomes mediumistic. There are brain waves that start to increase. Your child would start to see spirits with their eyes, hear spirits with their ears. They may even be interacting with them. And you see that you go in their nursery and they're over in the corner of their crib talking to something that isn't there. You may notice more orbs in the pictures surrounding them. And your child may start to go up to photographs of deceased ancestors in the house and say, like, that's Nana, or that's, I don't know, Pop, or that's whoever. And they may know them even by name. And there's no possible explanation for that, right? They've been dead. They've never met this child. Well, they're friends. They hang out all the time, more than you even hang out with your ancestors. So your child at 3 years old, sometimes this is as early as 2, will start to talk to the deceased. They are literally seeing them with their eyes. They are literally hearing them with their ears. And this could be both a positive and negative experience, depending upon what they're attracting, what's in your house. And if your house is full of paranormal problems, of course, that's an issue. Okay. Now, at 5 to 6 years old, we see the second big increase. And this has a lot to do with the right side of the brain developing. So a child will typically stop seeing the spirits as much with their eyes and hearing them with their ears. They will instead start to see the spirits up in their mind's eye, like a vision, and they will hear them in their own inner voice. This is called clairaudience. This is when ear ringing starts, tinnitus, the annoying pressure in your ears, and then spirits can put thoughts in your head. So they may talk to themselves a lot. They may have a lot of imaginary friends, right? And this is also the time when we start shaming them. Don't talk to your imaginary friend. You have to go to school. That's crazy. You don't want the doctors to diagnose you with something. Everyone's going to think you're nuts if you're doing this. You have to leave all that behind. Well, they were probably talking to their guides. They were probably talking to their ancestors. Those weren't imaginary friends. Those were the spirits that are here on their team to lead them through life, that we have deliberately cut them off from with shame and rejection. So we tend to see that it still remains an option to see with your eyes and hear with your ears when you're dozing off or waking up. So when the veil is lifted between the worlds, this is for kids, this is for adults, you will still see and hear clearly what has been going on around you. And some kids do tend to hold on to it. Some adults tend to hold on to it. Okay. So you can see them, you can hear them literally. And it can be a back and forth between both types of communication, literal or more like clairaudience. Then we have our next big increase at 14 to 16. 14 to 16 is a tough one. I always say the biggest one is 5 to 6, but 14 to 16 can seem like the biggest one because depression enters, anxiety enters. There are so many other struggles that are going on around that time. They're not just happy-go-lucky little kids anymore. There's a serious element to the structure of their life and where they're headed and what they're leaving behind in their childhood, literally, right? So we can see a lot of deterioration with our 14 to 16 year olds. And one of the things we also want to watch for around that time is an increase in toxic paranormal activity. So because of the depression, the anxiety, the double-mindedness, they often lose a sense of who they even are at all, especially when they're around other people. They can't keep track of who they are. And that's from the empathic overload, the absorption of other people. If you've ever felt like you were talking and you understood everything that you were thinking and feeling, and because you were around so many people, you just sort of lose track of where you're even going with it. It can be like that for them, but all the time. And they don't know where it's coming from or why it's happening. So they tend to get down on themselves. Now, when we have depression and anxiety, we are also prone to things like drug and alcohol use. Another terrible idea for anyone. It's a gateway for paranormal activity. They also tend to play with things like, either, darker, dark arts, witchcraft, Ouija boards, things like this. They tend to toy with it around that time, makes them hugely susceptible to things like attachments, which could lead to possession, not just for them, but for other family members. And we see that any kind of low level energy like anger and the heaviness from all of that change can attract other paranormal problems. So something to watch for around that time. What can you do? Again, check out the classes that I mentioned. Help your teenager to feel empowered with their abilities by not only getting educated on them, but also understanding how to really start utilizing them and giving them out to the public. So what I did with my kids was I made sure I started training them at 3 years old earlier if it needed to happen, so that we were identifying what abilities they had. And all three were totally different, and embracing that, encouraging them to better understand that. But then as they got older, I understood it's going to be too much. They have to actually start using this. And so that's when we want to get into actual training. What are they going to do? Are they going to give readings? Are they going to offer healings? Are they going to just make sure that they're putting the energy out properly back into the world instead of letting it build up in their body regularly? They have to learn how to block. They have to learn how to cleanse. All of these things need to be in place by 14 to 16. Okay. And I would suggest much, much older than that. Then we have another increase 25 to 27, but I'm not going to get into that. Your babies are that old. They're out and about. Okay. So they can take the course. They can buy it themselves. All right. The other thing, I want you guys to look at is encouraging them to be, really fearless with it. There's so much annoying stigma out there. People here, I live in a funeral home, and they're like, what? Oh my God, I could never. It's like, you've never done it. How do you know? What do you mean? Or people hear that I do this work, and they're like, what? You talk to the dead for a living? Like, I, don't want to have anything to do with that. Well, then go. Like, your first reaction to me is fear-based. It's toxic. You got bigger problems than I do, having to deal with the dead every day. I'd prefer to deal with them than people. There's so much judgment and toxicity, and people are so uneducated, and here they are coming out of cult-like religious systems judging us. So it's really ridiculous, and it's preventing a lot of evolution that we need to see with mankind at this time. We're disconnected from the environment, we're disconnected from ourselves, our communities, everything. Well, this is the way to get back in touch with our roots. And you want to encourage your children to, at all points in their development, be absolutely fearless about what they are. Be fearless about the spirit world. Be fearless about intuitive intelligence, because the bottom line is this: nobody knows. Okay. Nobody does. They want to say that they know, and they don't. And what they say they know is actually deteriorating everybody and doing a lot of damage. So forget about them. If we take the time to be fearless and instead take on an attitude of curiosity and engagement with whatever our abilities are, discernment will kick in, and we will be able to know what is low level and what is high, and we can choose the path from there and use it, not just for ourselves, but for other people. And I would encourage too, with your smaller kids, that, if they want to be like, well, do I have a superpower? Because I know a million grown men who ask if they have a superpower because they could do Reiki. Okay. So like, it's not going anywhere. If they want to know if they have a superpower, yes, you do. By all means, you have a superpower. Okay. You are supernatural. It is amazing. And we want to use it as though, it is this tremendous ability that like is super special to you, and you could do phenomenal things with it. So make it out to be something, maybe more than what it is. That's meeting them where they're at. Okay. I just want to say this too, before we get onto questions and comments. Religious exemplification. All right. If you are dealing in a custody battle, if you are dealing with somebody trying to medicate your child, misdiagnoses, whatever it is, you can say this is your religion. All right. People use it for all kinds of other unnecessary, in my opinion, right, escape routes, especially here in America. So if you want to say that this is your religion, again, this is where you cannot be double-minded. You need to back your faith. Then this is your religion, and you would technically be under spiritualism. Okay. And if you have to leave behind your past to protect your child. All right. But make sure that no one is legally attacking you for allowing them to be who they are. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get into questions and comments here. Mairead, my beautiful producer, will be popping them up on the screen, and I will get to as many as I can. If I didn't lose Mairead. Oh, there she is. And I forgot my glasses. All right. I'm a mess today, people. Nicole Hopkins. My son smokes weed to try and mask that he has many gifts. Him smoking weed has opened portals in my home, causing many problems. So you're going to want to check out a couple different things. So here on YouTube, I have one called Hauntings or 10 Signs Your House is Haunted. I have another one on attachments and possessions. But the real class, it's 2 hours long. I think it's even 2.5 hours long. It's called Hauntings, Clearings, and Detachments. And that's up on my website. Get educated and learn how to clear your space. You can also book a paranormal consultation with me and we can get to the bottom of it. But I can tell you right now, without you even researching anything else, if he continues on with that activity and he keeps bringing paranormal toxicity back into your house, but he resides there, you can clean till the cows come home. You can grid every square inch of your space. You will never be able to clean it up if the problem is a person residing on the property. Okay. So keep that in mind as you go forward. Thank you for that question. Tenaciously Brilliant asks, my 6-year-old receives messages from spirit and ancestors all the time. I'm worried about bullying and being seen as a bad parent for cultivating his gifts. Well, again, you don't need to cultivate your child's gifts until it's time to cultivate them. So, like I said, what I did with my kids was I made sure they were educated. I was fighting off the system. I was fighting off their toxic father. I was fighting off everyone who wanted to misdiagnose them and medicate them. But I didn't actually start training them until they were a little bit older. So until I knew that we had the current energy under control, and I do the same thing with my students in the psychic mediumship course. Until I know you've got this under control, we're not going to move on to opening up Pandora's box and being able to use it in different ways or help other people with it. As long as you are confident that you're not pushing it too early, I don't think you have anything to worry about. When you say I'm worried about, being judged, that's why I'm holding this class. I feel Spirit wanted me to have this because you guys need to teach yourselves how to say, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm ready to take on this battle before you can teach your child how to do that. Okay. You got to walk the walk. So you're going to go through the fire too. And that's it. You can't care. Okay. Yeah. You got to move past it. Will it happen? 100%. Are you going to get attacked? 100%. Are they judging you? You better believe it. Yep. Do you have to care? No, not at all. We have another one from TikTok at Crystal. I know my youngest son is like this, but I am so torn about how to approach it because of my husband's beliefs. Well, I feel for you. I had to deal with the same thing with my kids. He would have been happy to put them on meds and make sure they didn't even go to therapy and that they had all kinds of, just no help whatsoever. A lot of parents, because of their religious upbringing or their beliefs about the medical or scientific community, they're going to essentially, butt up against you because you are forcing them on a personal level to assess what it is that they believe and how it may be inaccurate. Nobody likes to have to do self-work or growth or be confronted. Okay. He was comfortable where he was, and now you're forcing him to be uncomfortable. Try to not take it personally if you can, and be like, I'm doing my job as a parent. I need to do what is best for my children. That is it. I know what's best. Okay. Not my spouse who can't think for himself. Not the medical field who's all about making that cash and big pharma, right? Not the school system that could not be more broken. You know what is best for your child. Hold to that right and keep pushing forward, and try not to take it personally, because your spouse is not the only battle you're facing here. Pull them all together and remove the personal aspect. Okay. I know that's easier said than done, but we can't cater to everybody else and take good care of our kids. We can't. So from TikTok at Samantha, will you possibly be offering intuitive parenting classes sometime in the future? Well, they're up. So we offer them all the time. I've offered them for 10 years. So if you go onto the website, ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com, you're going to see the empathic parent to child training. You're going to see intuitive kids. And I do allow children, if you want to call them children, in my psychic mediumship course, if they're old enough and when they're ready, if their parents think that they are. So we have a lot of teenagers in here. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm having a weird computer screen issue. Got it. Am I still here? Did I screw this up, Mairead? Am I still here? Okay. Okay, good. And do we have any other questions? Okay, good. This is blocking, so I can't see. I'm not. Oh, I think I fixed it. Okay. Oh God. All right. So we have one from Masubal, who is actually Melissa. I know that now. What if your teen child does not want completely believe they have abilities? Well, they're not going to. I mean, most adults don't want to believe that they have abilities. I don't want to believe I have ability. Nobody wants to do this. Okay, it's not a choice. They have to eat their broccoli. Okay, they can't just like play all day long. Sometimes they have to concentrate on work, or they will not learn new skills. Right there has to be some acceptance of who they are as people. They're going to have parts of their personality that are really highly functioning and parts of their personality that are not highly functioning, and our job as parents is to help them with both areas and to merge and marry these things. And intuition is not something anybody really wants to embrace, because we live in a society and a culture that says it's demonic and it's toxic and it's a sign of mental illness, right? And it's bad, it's shameful, it's causing problems, and you're going to get mocked for it. So it's not like it's comfortable for them to just do that. And we just have to be realistic that we are helping them to navigate those dark waters. It's all we can do. And I will also say this about your kids, okay? Do not forget they are not an extension of you. Don't helicopter over them. They are on their own path. They have their own life contract. Just because they signed on to you as a parent doesn't mean, okay, that like everything they do is something you have to be super invested in. You are here only to give them the tools. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Them or anyone else in the world. Give them those tools and let go. Okay. The more you hold on to it, even mentally, emotionally, energetically, the more you stifle it anyway. And that is basic law of attraction, manifestation 101 stuff. Okay. So apply that to your children as well. We have another one coming through from a Rachel M. Do you have any suggestions on how to handle two intuitive children being bullied by their very angry sibling in the same home? I wish. Been there, done that. It's hard to show love equally and to give everyone the protection they need. Well, there really is someone to blame, and it's a real tricky circumstance. I understand where you are. I guess my suggestions would be, first of all, book a reading with me and I could take a closer look at all three children and what's going to work for them. I can't possibly do that here in 3 minutes or less. But I would say that what you need to do is to make the rules very clear cut and to not try to hide, any of the abuse that's going on. So often when you have one child that's either narcissistic or they're bullying the others, whatever it is, that can often be worse than a parent that's abusive. It can do more damage even than a parent that's abusive. And so you don't want to deny it. We don't want to sugarcoat it, and we don't want to act like it's not happening. It's going to make it 100 times worse. So I would say be very honest and raw about your children, what they are doing to each other, how they're handling situations like that, and make sure that if it requires regular meetings, even that you're having those family meetings. I would be like, time for a family meeting. Okay. I raised 3 teenagers at once and we had a lot of meetings and a lot of those meetings were based on people's behavior. Okay. And what wasn't working and what was doing damage to the others, while encouraging everyone to be at their best, so I want to say that the worst thing you could do in a situation like that is to try to hide it, think they're going to outgrow it, or to sort of sugarcoat it just because you want to be loving in all ways. Okay. It's a little trickier than that. Okay, wonderful. So we are at time. I want to invite you guys to check out next Wednesday. I am doing an Ask Ivy show. So every 2 weeks I do Ask Ivy for about an hour here on TikTok and on YouTube, where I take your personal questions and I deliver out messages from spirit. In the meantime, if you need to book a reading with me, Ivy Rivera, psychicmedium.com. Thank you so much for the gifts and the donations, okay, especially you guys there on TikTok. And I do want to encourage you to also check out these other free mini classes. And I just want to encourage again, the one that is most connected to this topic today here on YouTube is the War on Intuition. The other 2 paid classes that you're going to be looking into are Intuitive Kids and Empathic Kids up on the website. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you, Mairead, my beautiful producer. See you guys next week.